Hello, and welcome to this video overview for our recent retail offering. Here, we'll be discussing the Applebee's Killeen project. David and Andrew will discuss the financial overview, along with the cash flow and returns. Applebee's Killeen is a single triple net leased investment and located in Killeen, Texas. Without further ado, we'll discuss the Applebee's Killeen project.
Applebee's Killeen, the 5,000 square foot single tenant net leased Killeen, which we are very excited to tell you about. David will be very excited to talk about Killeen. He was the one who actually found it.
Andrew, you're not kidding. I'm excited about this one. I chased after this one for about 3 months, watched it go under contract twice. And as much as I had to tell the broker, who we have a wonderful existing relationship with, that I hoped everything went smoothly for him, I have to be quite honest, I was lying to his face. And was quite happy when, thankfully for us, both buyers dropped out of contract due to their 1031 requirements not matching up with this property.
The purchase is going to be a $4.5 million purchase. The rent is roughly $300,000 a year. The cap rate in year one is a little low, but that's actually okay because we're getting a rent bump pretty much right after we buy it, and that brings the cap rate to a 7.3 cap, which is right in line with where we buy our properties these days too. And this is also a very unique property too, because we have a ton of term left on this lease. It's an absolute triple net lease, so there's nothing for Greenleaf to do other than pay the mortgage and make sure the tenant is paying rent. And it has 9.5 years left on the property. So by the time we close, we're going to have 9.5 years left of term on it. Typically, we like to sell properties with 5 or more years of term left on it. And so we're targeting a whole period of around 4 years. It hits all of our metrics. So the biggest thing we look at when we're looking at Applebee's or any type of restaurant is a rent to sales ratio. If you look in the bottom corner of the slide, you'll see some of the other Applebee's that we've done. And this one right now has a 7% rent to sales ratio. And typically we're targeting buying restaurants anything less than 8%, and even 10% is good for some restaurants, but this one is remarkable at a 7% rent to sales ratio. So basically their rent is going to be 7% of their overall sales. And this is it's the second to the lowest rent to sales ratio of all the other Applebee's that we have purchased.
Our experience, as you can see from the 5, this will be our 5th actually, but showing the data of what we've done, following our model of looking for Applebee's, which is a strong brand, as everybody has heard from our different live streams, but a lot of cash on hand, growing brand, adapted well through COVID, and fitting with looking for the highest selling locations and strong rent to sales, which will fit really well into our portfolio. And our track record and relationship with this broker actually allowed us to get this property for $250,000 less than the other offers. Really strong purchase for us, speaks to the strength of our team in building those relationships and knowing the markets and what we've done with Applebee's so far.
All right, so David, tell us why you're really excited about this location and why it's going to be an easy Applebee's for Greenleaf to do.
Applebee's is the 24th ranked brand in Restaurant Business Magazine, who ranks all the major brands on a yearly basis. And Applebee's is also actually the biggest casual dining brand. They are Applebee's and IHOP together, who have over 3,000 units and are really the behemoth of the casual dining industry, which really helped them execute through COVID, adapt, and their sales are up 7% across the board on same store sales bases from 2019 to 2021. So you could see this store fits that mold. It's doing $4.2 million a year, which is the highest Applebee's that we've seen. And the data is supported both within the brand, where it's high performing, and also within the local area, because in addition to the brand, we want to verify that it's high performing in the local area. And as you can see, it's 88th percentile, which is 16th out of 130 restaurants located within the 5-mile radius of this property. It's on a primary corridor, and it's really ranked at the top performer of this corridor. So they're very happy with this store, both in terms of foot traffic and the overall sales. And Applebee's as a brand is about as strong as it gets in terms of casual dining.
And David, we should also say about the Placer data too is if we just rank this location compared to all the other Applebee's there are in the state of Texas right now, according to foot traffic, this restaurant is the 14th busiest when it comes to foot traffic out of 88 restaurants in Texas, which puts it at the 85th percentile of foot traffic in all of the restaurants in Texas. So that's a pretty remarkable statistic. And even the 50-mile radius of this particular Applebee's, there's 8 of them. And of the 8 Applebee's in the 50-mile radius of where this one's located, this is actually the first one out of the 8 Applebee's. So it just checks all of our boxes. We know it's busy. We know the sales are great. And everything about this Applebee's just works really well. So the location is in Killeen, Texas, the Texas Triangle. And the Texas Triangle is it's Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and Houston. This whole area where I think, David, is it fair to say most of Texas commerce is in this little triangle?
Not only most of Texas commerce, but a full 7% of the entire U.S. GDP occurs in this triangle. And it's called an economic Godzilla. It's 4 of the 20 largest cities in the entire country in this triangle within a few hours driving distance of each other. So looking for these megatropolis areas that we want to be in and break into Texas, when you want to go into Texas, being right in the middle of this triangle, as you can see Killeen is, and well located within the triangle on a major interstate, over 100,000 cars a day, that's an area that it's very compressed in terms of the cap rates. And to get such a strong brand, a strong performing location in the middle of this triangle, that shows exactly what we're trying to do with our Texas strategy.
David, I'm still missing all of the excitement in your voice and why you're not moving to Texas. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the comps?
So in this case, as we've mentioned, Texas is really an animal unto its own in terms of cap rates. The same goes for Florida. So whereas with previous Applebee's, we've really compared with our broader 5-state location that we deal in to understand the overall markets. Here we've generated a specific comp set of Applebee's in Texas that have sold in the last year. And what we really like about this, as you can see on the cap rates, we're buying this for 58 basis points above the average cap rate for an Applebee's in Texas. But the 2 comps that I'd really like to highlight are the Fort Worth comp, which is number 1 on the screen, as well as the McAllen comp, which is number 3, because when we look for comps, obviously we look at all the Applebee's, but we try and zero in on the ones that are really similar. And these 2 are actually from the same franchisee with the same lease term remaining and the same 10% rent bump coming in 2023. And these both traded for a 5.75 cap. In addition to those things, they're both in highly trafficked areas, big 3-mile populations, similar to our Killeen property. So when we compare them, those are extremely direct comparisons, and we're buying that. And when you compare to those, you're buying this for an even greater spread compared to those 5.75 caps.
So what is the investment? So right now, the contract price is $4.5 million. Closing costs are roughly $167,000. We, for a triple net property with no maintenance, we typically reserve 3 months mortgage payments, which is $47,000. And so the overall deal cost is about $4.7 million. Of the $4.7 million, we're going to take on about $2.9 million of debt, and then it'll be roughly $1.8 million of equity. The preferred return and all the return and fees are typical of a Greenleaf retail deal. And if you go to the right-hand side of the slide, this is what everybody's wondering about. So number 1, your investment return, including principal paydown, year 1 will be 9%. But then in year 4, we move to a cash-on-cash return, which is, we call it the beer money, will be close to 7%. And then the total investment return of just cash, if we not sell it, including principal payment, would be 11%. And then what happens in year 2 is we actually get the 10% rent bump. And so year 1 will look very different from year 2, 3, and 4. Year 2, 3, and 4 will be very similar. So that year 4 return will be somewhat similar to year 2 and 3 also. And so on this slide, this is it. This is kind of the meat of the deal. We are targeting right now an exit in year 4, which will leave 5 years of term left on the lease. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, we are targeting a 6.25 exit right now, which roughly gets us a 13% overall project return. But you remember on the previous slide, David talked about Applebee's are selling in, high 5s or 6. And so if we look at the exit sensitivity table, and if you get to the 6 cap sale or the 5.75 cap sale, you're getting to that 15 to 17% internal rate of return, which is a pretty remarkable return for a retail deal. We're happy sometimes with 10 to 12%, but this is a phenomenal producer. So Dominique, we will turn it over to you now.
Thanks so much for joining today, and we look forward to seeing you soon.